So on the subject of marriage, to whatever extent you feel like sharing some insights and whatnot on relationships, because I posted a thread in your Facebook group asking, what questions people might have, and I knew that I was going to get way more questions than I could possibly handle, but I think there were a couple that asked about relationships. Do you have any specific insights, learning experiences, lessons in a year of marriage?
So many. So many. I don't even know how to whittle it down. We were actually just talking today about writing a book together about relationships and starting to do relationship seminars, because it is such an intense nightmare in most people's lives, honestly. Do you have any specific questions you can remember from people?
Nobody got too specific on that, but let's start with because one of your first podcasts was on the subject of privacy.
Mm-hmm. Still not a resolved issue in our relationship.
Okay, well that answers the question, because I actually a video response to that one from India, and I was somewhat siding more with Sarbdeep on that one, even though I definitely see where you're coming from and the importance of moving towards greater openness. But so you basically sort of left that one unresolved, huh?
Well, we haven't left it alone or tried to avoid it. It's more that the issue keeps coming up and we keep running into the same impasse. But what we've both decided to do, in accordance with a lot of the instructions which I've been receiving from, let's say, people that are not embodied, my guides specifically, is that what has to happen for two people to find a meeting of minds is that they have to purify their negative reasonings for going into things. So if you remember, I don't remember whether it was part of the episode or not, but there are positive, super positive reasons why, I want oneness and openness. Right? But there's also shadow reasons, right? And if you look at Sarbdeep, or your other partner, if you're a partner or somebody, the same thing goes for their desires. It's like a mixed vibration between things that you want for really good reasons and other things you want for really shadowy reasons. And so for...
What would the shadow reasons then be, of wanting to sort of avoid stuff and just, leave stuff behind within, like shadow stuff?
All right, so this is what I mean by that. If you look at my desire for complete and utter openness, right? You have the universal truth that oneness is there and that all forms of authenticity basically are going to free you. And so until you get to the point where you're ready to air your dirty laundry, you're still in self-rejection. That's the positive aspect, super universal aspect. The negative aspect, if we look at it, and it's like I'm of course assigning the title negative to it, but if we were to look at this sort of shadow aspect of it, what you can see in my childhood is that I was injured by the lack of exposure. I was injured by privacy. Having been in an abusive situation where the secret was to remain between him and I, and that was exactly how these people end up killing children and getting away with all of this awful stuff. So obviously, I have a very deep wound in association with privacy. Yes. Now, if you look at Sarb, and you look at his childhood, right, he wants privacy for some positive reasons, being that there's a simplicity to not involving everybody in every aspect of your life, especially when you get famous. I mean, if you look at somebody who's in my position, I've got thousands of people that are sending me emails every day wanting to come live with me. So, it can get really frustrating and difficult when the door is always open for everything. And so it's understandable why for the positive aspect, that simplicity and the ability to contain your energies and to really choose what you give away or keep is a positive aspect of privacy. Now, if you look at the negative aspects, the shadow aspect of privacy, and you look at his past, you have somebody who is injured by exposure, his boundaries were never, ever listened to. That means that, in his childhood, growing up, when he said no, it didn't matter whether he said no or not. People just did exactly as they pleased. And so, and of course, a lot of embarrassment also of his parents just exposing things about him to their friends that was super embarrassing to him, and he wasn't ready to divulge. So he has a lot of wounding around the idea of that exposure, which is like, openness. So what we decided to do is, which I think I would advise any couple to do if you're in one of those impasse situations, is to focus, like drop the positive aspects for a minute. Don't even make it about that. And work individually on the wounding that you've got around that particular charged subject. So he works on the wounding he's got about exposure. I work on the wounding I've got about that secrecy and that privacy. And then what happens is you start coming more into alignment with the positive aspect of that, which usually looks more like a balance. Of course, balance is a whole other subject, which I'm going to do a video on because, I've got some interesting views on that one. But the point being is that you find this really healthy place where you're in a space of total awareness, and the reasons that you're doing things are not motivated by wounding, they're motivated by deliberate choice. Yeah. And you make smart decisions then also. It's not like you just give everything to everybody. You're in a space where it's like, I know what's self-loving for me, and what self-loving for me is doing this. And so what you're noticing is that it's not that I'm really doing anything much different, now that we have been doing this kind of a process. Sarvdeep is actually getting a lot more open, ironically, but I don't feel the hurt anymore in association with it as strongly, is what's happening. It's not like I don't feel as inhibited by a partner that wants privacy as I used to. It still sucks for me, though, to have, like I'm getting emails, of course, about the fact that the only wedding photos that I posted are wedding photos of myself. So now I get to look like the most narcissistic human being alive. Like, look, it's my wedding. Here's me. So that still sucks, but...
It sounds like the one of the lessons there is of identifying, your differences and where you're coming to a head, and then not necessarily expecting to resolve it right there, but just the awareness of what it is and the intention to resolve it. People don't change overnight generally.
Yeah.
But that's the point of relationships to a great extent is for it to foster over the course of time and
that actually brings us to a nice point that I've been coming to relative to relationships in general, which is that if we're in a relationship, rather than wanting to agree, we should be focused on understanding each other. So if you and I are in a relationship and I'm trying to understand you and you're trying to understand me, then we will both be understood. Which is what most relationships are crap, because it's really a power struggle. There isn't really that genuine desire to know somebody or to have that level of intimacy. And so what we end up with is, I want you to be on my side, and the other person saying, I want you to be on my side. So now we're fighting about sides when it really should be on the same level playing field if we really took each other into account. But I feel like we've done a pendulum swing, of course, because in the beginning, when it came to relationships, it was like self-sacrifice was so paramount and that doesn't work, that we've now swung the pendulum to like this super self-centered type of a mentality about relationships, where it's like, well, if you don't agree with what I need and want, then you're done. And so we need to sort of come back towards the center, where we're capable of prioritizing ourselves as well as our partners, and seeing that those things are not mutually exclusive.
Yeah, and you need to find out whether you're actually playing the game competitively or cooperatively. There's a great. I'll just give a very quick little example here. I forget. I might have mentioned this in another video or something sometime, but there was this experiment that people did with children, in which they invented this game, and there was only one piece on the board, like imagine a checkerboard, and whoever got the piece over to the other person's side would get a piece of candy. And each person gets one move. So it's really a trick game, because you move it one and then the other person moves it one. So you're just going to move it back and forth if you're playing competitively. But if you figure it out, if you trust each other, then you can just say, okay, we're going to move it over to your side first, and then that person gets a piece of candy, and then they move it over to the other person's side after that, and then you can have all the candy you want. But as long as you're in competitive mode, then you're going to be fighting against each other, and nobody's going to get anything.
I think that's a serious blessing of being in the particular relationship I'm in right now, is that I've met my power match. Meeting your power match is a really, really nice thing in life, even though it's uncomfortable as hell, because when you butt heads, no one's going anywhere. So you're kind of forced either to like split up or else to learn how to do that and go in the same direction.
Exactly. You just have to develop that trust and just decide, okay, we're in a we're in it together to make as much of it as we can, and how can we move it forward and not be locking horns.
Exactly, but to do that you have to decide you're committed. That's another issue that I watch with people in relationships, is that we can say we're committed when we're really not committed. Like if you're committed, then it's very easy to make relationship issues change. But if you're not really committed, then you got to make the decision whether you're going to commit or not first before you even start moving forward.
Yeah, and I think you have to be able to accurately, as best as you can at least, assess whether it's even possible, considering your relationship, considering the two people, to come into that place of true cooperativeness, or whether it's just going to be a butting heads kind of a thing for who knows how long.
That's the frustrating. I think the most frustrating part to relationships is, and what makes most people feel the most powerless, is because it really does take two to tango. So it's very important that we pick people who are capable of tangoing. Not that we always get along, because there's nothing wrong with a argument or butting heads or whatever. But if we've picked a partner that doesn't want to tango, then you're never going to be dancing. I watch that also a lot in relationships or in life, where some people don't actually want relationships where they are in their life, but they think they should have it, and so they get into them, and they're not really ready to do that yet. It's like, I don't want to get my hands messy, so make this clean for me, or I don't want to be here, So have fun with that. Life is messy as hell.